He laughed. In the middle of Balogun Market, with the whole world watching, my husband threw his head back and he laughed at me. I was standing there with tears running down my face, holding an empty purse, and the man I had given 8 years of my life looked at me like I was a stranger begging him for coins. "Why are you crying?" he said, still smiling. "You think money grows on my body." The women selling pepper paused. The man pushing the wheelbarrow slowed down. Even the small boy carrying nylon bags stopped to look. And Chikwudi enjoyed it. He enjoyed the audience. But what he didn't know was that my phone was about to ring. And in less than 2 minutes, that same laughter was going to die on his face. Stay with me. Because this is not a story about a woman who was humiliated. This is a story about the day silence finally became power. Let me take you back. My name is Neka. I am 34 years old. I was born in Surulere, raised by a mother who sold fabric and a father who fixed generators until his hands could no longer hold a screwdriver. We were not poor. But we were not the kind of people Chikwidi's family respected. When I married him, his mother looked at me the way you look at a plate that is not clean enough. She smiled, but the smile never reached her eyes. "She is not from our level," she once whispered, not knowing I was behind the curtain. "But love is love. Let us manage." Manage. That word followed me into my marriage like a shadow. For 8 years I managed. I want to ask you something before we continue. What city are you watching from tonight? Because I have learned that this kind of pain has no borders. Speaks every language. Tell me in the comments. Lagos, Nairobi, Accra, London, wherever you are. I want to know I am not telling this story to an empty room. Now let me tell you how I got to that market. When Chikwudi and I married, I had just finished my degree in accounting. Had dreams. Big ones. I wanted to work in a real firm, wear a real ID card, sit in a real office on the island. But 2 months after the wedding, Chikwudi sat me down. "Neka," he said, holding my hands like a man who loved me. "Let me build first. One income is enough for now. When I rise, you will rise with me. Just hold the home." And I believed him. So I held the home. I cooked, cleaned. I raised our daughter, Chidima. I watched his mother come and go as she pleased, rearranging my kitchen, correcting my cooking, telling me I was lucky her son chose me. I swallowed it. All of it. Because that is what we are taught, isn't it? That a good wife endures. That patience is a woman's crown. That if you suffer long enough, God will reward you. So I waited for the reward. But the reward never came. Only the suffering grew. Chikwudi did rise. That part was true. He got a good job at a real estate company called Oakwood Properties. He started wearing crisp shirts. He started smelling of expensive cologne. He started talking about Lekki, about moving us to the island, about the big contracts his company was chasing. And as he rose, he changed. The man who once held my hands began to look through me like I was furniture. The compliments stopped. The conversations stopped. He stopped asking how my day went because in his eyes, what does a housewife do all day? But what hurt the most was the money. Every naira became a battle. If I asked for money for foodstuff, he sighed like I had asked for his kidney. If I needed to buy Chidima's school uniform, he questioned the price 3 times. "Other women manage," he would say. "Why are you not managing?" That word again. Manage. Meanwhile I noticed things. I noticed the new perfume that was not for me. I noticed the receipts from restaurants I had never seen. I noticed the way he smiled at his phone late at night and tilted the screen away when I walked past. Her name was Blessing. I found out by accident. A text lit up his screen one night while he showered. The bathroom door half open, steam curling out, the generator humming outside the way it always did. 3 words. "Miss you." And a name I did not know. I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark for a long time, listening to the water run, listening to my own heart break quietly in my chest. I never confronted him. Not loudly. Not dramatically. I just watched. And I remembered. Because here is the thing about a woman who has been ignored for too long. She becomes invisible. And an invisible woman sees everything. Because something inside me had already started to shift. I just didn't have a name for it yet. Now here is the part one never told anyone. While I was just a housewife, I was not idle. In the quiet hours of the night, when Chidima slept and Chakudi was out closing deals with Blessing, I was studying. I finished my professional accounting exams. 2 attempts. Passed. I built a small bookkeeping business from my phone, handling accounts for market women and small shop owners in Surulere. Quiet money. Small money. But my money. And then, 6 months before that day in the market, something happened. A woman whose accounts I had been managing, a fabric importer named Mrs. Okonkwo, looked at my work one day and said something I will never forget. "Neka," she said, "you are too sharp to be hiding. My nephew runs a big firm on the island. Crestmont Group. They are looking for someone like you. Let me send your name." Almost said no. I almost said, my husband would not allow it. But that night Chakudi came home, dropped his shoes by the door and said, "Heat the food and stop disturbing me with questions." And something in me went quiet. The kind of quiet that comes right before a storm. The next morning I sent my CV. I went for the interview in secret. I borrowed a blazer from my neighbor. I told Chakudi I was going to the market. I sat across from 3 directors at Crestmont Group, and for the first time in 8 years somebody asked me to speak, and then actually listened. When I walked out of that office, my hands were shaking. Not from fear. From something I had forgotten I could feel. Oh, they said they would call. That was 3 weeks before the market. So now let me bring you back to that day. It was a Saturday. The sun was hot enough to melt patience. Balogun Market was alive. Buses honking, hawkers shouting, the smell of fried akara mixing with diesel and dust. I had gone to buy ingredients for Chidima's birthday. Just rice, chicken, a few things. Nothing extravagant. Chakudi had insisted on coming, not to help me, but because he was meeting one of his business friends nearby and wanted to drop me first. At the chicken seller stall, I picked what I needed. The woman said the price. I opened my purse. And it was empty. I had forgotten. Chakudi had taken the money I kept in the house that morning, mumbling something about fuel. Had nothing. So I turned to him. In front of the seller. In front of everyone. "Chakudi," I said softly. "Please, the money for the chicken." He looked at me. Then he looked at the seller. Then he smiled that smile I had come to hate. "You came to the market without money," he said, loud enough for the next 3 stalls to hear. "What kind of wife is this?" "Please," I whispered. "Not here. Not here." He laughed. "You want me to baby you? A grown woman. Begging in the market like a child." The tears came before I could stop them. Hot, fast, shameful tears. And that was when he threw his head back and laughed. "Look at her crying," he said to no one and everyone. "This is why I tell her to manage. Crying over chicken." The seller looked away, embarrassed for me. A woman nearby clicked her tongue. I have never felt so small in my entire life. I wanted the ground to open and swallow me whole. Have you ever been so humiliated by someone you loved that your body forgot how to breathe? If you have, type "I understand" in the comments. 'Cause I need to know somebody out there knows this exact feeling. And then, my phone rang. It was loud. Cut through the market noise. The screen lit up with a number I did not recognize, an island number. My hands were still shaking from the tears as I picked it. "Hello," said my voice broken. "Good afternoon, am I speaking with Neka?" Calm, professional voice. "Yes," I managed. "This is Crestmont Group. I'm calling on behalf of the board. We would like to formally offer you the position of Senior Financial Controller." The board was very impressed. "We'd like you to resume in 2 weeks." I stood there in the middle of Balogun Market, with my husband's laughter still hanging in the air, and the world went silent. "There's something else," the voice continued. "Part of your role will include reviewing acquisition files. As you may know, Crestmont is in the final stage of acquiring a real estate firm, Oakwood Properties. Your first major assignment will be overseeing the restructuring. Oakwood Properties. Chakudi's company. The very company he bragged about. The very company chasing the very contract he thought would make him a big man. And I was about to become the person who decided its future. And his. I lowered the phone slowly. Chukwudi was still smiling. Still waiting for me to wipe my tears and beg for chicken money. Who was that? He asked, half mocking. I looked at him. And for the first time in 8 years I did not cry. It was nobody, I said quietly. Let's go home. But what he didn't know was that everything had just changed. I did not tell him that night. I did not tell him for 2 whole weeks. Because something my mother once said came back to me. Neka, she used to say, when God is about to lift you, don't announce it. Let your enemies discover it the hard way. So I stayed quiet. I cooked, cleaned. I let him insult me. I let his mother visit and rearrange my kitchen. I let Blessing's perfume keep arriving on his collar. And every day, the secret grew heavier and sweeter in my chest. 2 weeks later, I told him I had gotten a small job. He laughed again. Of course he did. A job, he said. Doing what? Counting beans for market women. Just don't let it disturb my food. It won't, I said. He never even asked the company name. That is how little he thought of me. The first day I walked into Crestmont Group, I wore a navy blue suit I had bought with my own money. I had an ID card with my name on it. Real office. Real desk. A window that looked out over the island Chukwudi had always promised but never gave. I sat down and for a moment I just breathed. 8 years of silence. 8 years of managing. And now here I was. But I did not let the moment soften me. I had work to do. On my desk, in a brown folder, was the Oakwood Properties acquisition file. Opened it. And what I found made my heart stop. Oakwood was drowning. The contract Chukwudi had been bragging about, the big one, the one he said would change our lives, had collapsed weeks ago. The company was deep in debt. Crestmont was not just acquiring them. Crestmont was rescuing them. And the restructuring would mean deciding which staff stayed, which contracts were honored, and which managers were fit to lead the new arm. Chukwudi's name was in that file. His position, his salary, his performance reviews, his fate. All of it now sitting on my desk. The man who laughed at me in the market did not know that the wife he humiliated now held his career in her hands. Let me be honest with you. In that moment I felt the temptation. The whisper. The dark, sweet whisper that says, now is your time. Crush him. Cut his name from the list. Let him taste what humiliation feels like. I sat with that feeling for a long time. And then I closed the file. 'Cause here is what I have learned. Revenge that destroys you is not power. It is just another cage. I did not want to become the kind of person Chukwudi was. I did not want to win by becoming cruel. So I did something else. Something quieter. Something stronger. I decided to do my job. Properly. Fairly. With excellence. And I let the truth do what the truth always does. Surface on its own. The day Oakwood Properties was summoned to Crestmont for the restructuring meeting, I did not warn Chukwudi. I simply sat at the head of the conference table, my files arranged, my pen ready. The door opened. The Oakwood team filed in. Nervous men in suits, sweating despite the air conditioning. And then Chukwudi walked in. He was mid-sentence, laughing at something, adjusting his cufflinks, playing the confident big man. The cologne reached the table before he did. He pulled out a chair. He looked up to greet the executive in charge. And he saw me. I watched his face. I watched the laughter die. I watched the color drain. I watched the confusion come first, then the disbelief, then the slow, horrible understanding crawl across his features like a shadow moving over a wall. His mouth opened. No words came out. His hand, still on the cufflink, froze in the air. Somewhere outside the glass, Lagos roared on as normal. The traffic, the hawkers, the Danfo conductors shouting for passengers. Life outside continued as if nothing had happened. But inside that cold, quiet room, his whole world had just turned over. Good afternoon, gentlemen, I said calmly. I'm Neka, Senior Financial Controller. I'll be overseeing this restructuring. The silence in that room said everything. Chikudi's friends turned to look at him. His boss, who was sitting beside him, frowned and whispered, "Is there a problem?" Chikudi could not answer. He was staring at me like a man seeing a ghost. Like a man watching the ground he stood on turned to water. I did not gloat. I did not smile. I simply opened the file and began the meeting. "I want you to understand something. I was fair. Painfully fair. I reviewed every staff member by merit. Asked hard questions. Made notes. I treated Chikudi exactly like everyone else. No harder, no softer. But that fairness was its own kind of justice. Because for the first time, Chikudi had to sit in a room and be measured. Not by his bragging. Not by his cologne. Not by the woman he could shout at in a market. But by his actual work. And his actual work was thin. The performance reviews told the story he had hidden from me. The missed targets. The deals he took credit for that were really other people's. The contract he had bragged about. The truth was, he had lost it through his own carelessness. By the end of the meeting, the picture was clear to everyone in that room. The big man was not so big after all. That evening, Chikudi came home a different man. He did not drop his shoes by the door and demand food. He stood in the doorway, looking at me like he was meeting me for the first time. "Neka," he said, his voice small. "Why didn't you tell me?" I looked up from the table where I was helping Chidima with her homework. "Tell you what?" said. That you work there. That you are." He could not finish. "You never asked," I said simply. He sat down slowly. The arrogance was gone. The laughter was gone. What was left was a man who had finally realized what he had been holding all these years, and how close he was to losing it. "I'm sorry," he said. "For the market. For everything." And here is where many people expect the story to turn dark. They expect me to laugh in his face the way he laughed in mine. To throw him out. To make him beg on his knees. But I did not. I looked at him for a long time. The man I had loved. The man I had endured. The father of my child. And I felt something I did not expect. Not hatred. Not even anger. "Chikudi," I said quietly. "I am not going to punish you. That is not who I am. But I am also not the woman you laughed at in that market. That woman is gone." He nodded, tears in his eyes now. The same tears he had mocked in me. "Things are different now," I continued. "I have my own name. My own work. My own voice. If you want this marriage, you will have to respect the woman I have become. Not the one you tried to make small." He nodded again, and this time the nod meant something. "I wish I could tell you that everything became perfect. Life is not a fairy tale." Chikudi's career did not collapse, but it shrank. He was kept on, but in a smaller role, under younger managers. The big man dream he had chased so desperately quietly faded. Blessing the other woman. She disappeared the moment the money did. That too taught him something. And me. I rose. Slowly. Steadily. On my own terms. We are still together, Chikudi and I. But the home is different now. The power is balanced. He has learned that the wife he tried to silence was always the strongest thing in his life. Sometimes late at night I catch him watching me work, a strange humility in his eyes. He never laughs at me anymore. So let me leave you with this. To every woman who has ever been humiliated by the person who was supposed to protect her, I want you to hear me. Your silence is not weakness. Your patience is not foolishness. And the thing they laugh at you for today may be the very thing that lifts you tomorrow. Do not announce your rise. Do not beg for respect. Just become the woman they cannot ignore. Because one day the phone will ring. And everything will change. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But completely. If this story touched you, tell me one thing in the comments. Did Neka do the right thing by staying, or should she have walked away? I read every comment and I want to hear what you would have done. And if you believe a woman's quiet strength is more powerful than loud revenge, type "quiet strength wins." Don't forget to subscribe to True Vine Stories because next time, I'm telling you about a woman whose mother-in-law locked her out in the rain, not knowing the house already belonged to her. You won't want to miss it. Until then, stay strong, stay patient, and never let anyone laugh away your worth. This is True Vine Stories. Good night.